there's a dark side to doing inner work. If we look at personal development, to keep it simple, we can divide it into two camps. So one camp is all about the external creation, taking action, building habits, and the other group is all about the internal work. So it's about the limiting beliefs, it's about going deeper into past traumas and dissolving certain things. I would call this group also the more spiritual group. So to me, spiritual is not religion, but it's working with the things that you can see. So if you already believe that there are things outside of us that we can see that are influencing our existence, to me, that's already spiritual. So if we look at the spiritual group, this is all about the internal work. And I believe in both sides. I believe in a harmony between both sides. But there is also, of course, both sides have pros and cons, but there is a huge flaw and danger when it comes to doing inner work. Because it can get addicting and it can turn into spiritual bypassing very quickly, where you use the inner work to avoid the real issues. And this is also how I've seen it myself in my life. And I see this a lot when I'm talking to people, especially that are more oriented towards the spiritual side. Because I was talking to a lady recently and she was all about that world. She was also working in that world. So she was doing multiple forms of therapies. She was doing ayahuasca retreats and she was working on this 5D reality stuff. And to me, like, I have no problem with this. Like, I love it when people just commit to certain things in their life. But when I was going deeper into this with her, and I started to poke at certain things, I realized that she was having daily conflicts with her partner. Daily conflicts. And when I wanted to move the conversation, because it was a coaching conversation, when I wanted to move that into that direction, it was like, nope, we're not going there. We're not going to look at the conflicts I have with my partner. And she had this for a significant amount of time. So she was doing all this work to become free from the anger and the frustration and the past traumas. So she wanted to cultivate more freedom and enlightenment, whatever you want to call it, higher consciousness, expanded consciousness. And she didn't want to look at this conflict. And this is where I see the flaw coming up in the spiritual bypassing, where you think you are creating more freedom by dissolving all of these things. You think you're stepping outside of your comfort zone because the work is uncomfortable. And that's the danger, because it is still your comfort zone. What the people don't realize is your comfort zone is not stepping outside of your comfort zone doesn't mean it's uncomfortable. You can feel uncomfortable in your comfort zone. Your comfort zone is staying in what you know. And she was very familiar in this world of inner work and trying to dissolve all of these things internally, but she didn't want to confront the real issues externally. So how free are you really? And that's the question. How free are you really if you can't even look at the confrontations and the conflicts that you have with your partner? You can do all the inner work that you want, but this is where the real work is. And that's where I believe your external work is the inner work. The trap that people fall into when they go into this inner work direction is thinking that whenever feelings and emotions come up, that you need to dive into your past. Like, where is this coming from? I need to dissolve this. There must be some kind of trauma in my past, and that's why I experience this fear. It's like, maybe fear is just part of our human existence and all the other experiences that you have. Maybe it's just part of being human. And we don't have to overcomplicate it and think something is immediately wrong with us that we need to fix or dissolve. That's the danger. There are certain parts when there are strong patterns present, definitely go deeper into it. Like, I'm a big proponent of that. But not every single feeling that you have needs to be analyzed in that kind of way, in the inner work kind of way. I also talked to a guy, for example, and this is a business example, where he wanted to start his own business. So awesome. But he was having all these fears and this and that. And he was trying for years. He was going to therapy and coaching and all of this stuff for years to dissolve all the issues that he was experiencing because he was too afraid to take action. So when I was talking to him, I just cut off all the noise that he was bringing up. So we only looked at the actions that he had to take. So what the actions consisted of was sending people messages for his service. Start with reaching out to people and tell that you started a business. Like, people need to know that you started something. But he was too afraid to do it. So what he chose to do, instead of doing the uncomfortable work, he chose to go into therapy to work on the past relationship with his father. Because maybe that's where the fear come from. And that's why he didn't feel good enough to be able to send a message like that. And to me, it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I'm all for going into your past and dissolving this relationship, but it's not a requirement to take action. This is where the spiritual bypassing shows up. You think you need to do the inner work first to be able to take action. But I'm a big believer in exposure therapy. You can have all the imaginary conditions and requirements, but they are all imaginary. They are made up. You can take action with fear. You can take action while you don't experience any confidence. You can take action while you don't feel good enough. You don't have to do the inner work. You don't have to go into therapy to be able to do something. And yes, there are exceptions. Sometimes the therapy completely shuts your body down in some kind of way. So there are definitely exceptions, but for 90% of the people, it is not the case. He was still able to send someone a message. Is it scary? Yes. Does it feel like he has to puke when he sends the first message? Probably, but that's part of the game. That's why I'm a big believer in the external work is the internal work. By taking the action, by exposing yourself to the fear, staying with that experience, staying with the fear, and choosing to move past it anyway, that in itself is doing the inner work. These two worlds are not separate from each other, the external work and the internal work, the action part and dissolving the limiting beliefs. When you send, for example, he was afraid to send a message. When you send those messages, you will experience freedom on the other side. You will experience a level of confidence on the other side like you've never experienced before. Because you were able to move with the fear. How much confidence will you experience? That you feel that you're bigger than the fear, bigger than your emotions that you experience. That is the pitfall also when you overly emphasize on the internal work, you become all of your emotions. The emotions and all the feelings become bigger than you. And this is not to talk down on that area, but this is really to highlight the danger of doing all this inner work. Because you can so quickly think something is wrong with me. All the emotions that I experience, I need to look at this. Otherwise, I will never become free. Like, real freedom is just being with the emotions and not thinking that you need to fix it or get rid of it. That's the real freedom, where you don't feel this need to do something with it. Real freedom is being able to move anyway, with the emotions that you experience. So this is, like I said, not to talk down on these people, because I'm a big proponent in doing the inner work. This is what I do with all of my clients. This is what I've done myself. I experienced so much freedom through doing all of this work. Because I didn't realize, for example, how anger was running me for 13 years. I was doing all the stuff. I was doing my NLP. I was doing some family systems. I was doing the coaching. I was doing the therapy. I was doing all the stuff. What I just did not see was I was creating from anger, and it was destroying me from the inside. So this is part of the inner work. But this is a pattern that was there for 13 years. But not everything deserves inner work. External work is your inner work. When you face a fear, do the thing anyway. When you are afraid to stand on stage and do some public speaking, sign up and do the thing. When you are afraid of singing, go out and sing. Take your singing classes. When you are afraid to ask a girl out on the street, approach a girl, approach a stranger, say hi to people. Start a conversation with the barista in the coffee shop. Whatever it is, whatever you're afraid of, whenever you feel that resistance, don't retract, because that's the safe option. That's the spiritual bypassing. Lean into it. That's where the real confidence and freedom is. And this is where I'm building a training. I'm almost finished with this training. And this is a completely free training, by the way. This is the foundation of any change that you want to create in life. This is the foundation that most people avoid and don't want to look at. Oh my God, I wish people didn't interpret these feelings as something is wrong. Whenever you experience fear, whenever you feel resistance and scared to do something, whenever you meet your edge, this is what you're supposed to feel if you want to create a change in your life. You want to look for these situations and lean into it. There's nothing wrong with you. You are supposed to feel these things. Be excited when you feel it. Because the external work is the internal work. You don't just have to go inward to create more confidence and freedom. By taking these actions, you will create so much confidence and freedom.